Mine does too.
There it goes.
There you go. All right. Never Settle Podcast 12. Is this actually 12 or is this 11?
It's 12.
That's
Okay.
cool.
The last one said 11, but it was only 2 minutes long. Anyways, it's been a while, and we're all kind of back settled into where we're living. And it was interesting, was recently listening to a message by Francis Chan from Passion 2014 this year, and I was really challenged. He was talking about how amazing it was, all these miracles that Yahweh did in the Old Testament, how he spoke through fire and separated the Red Sea, and just, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and rescued them from the burning furnace, and all these incredible stories that he did where he really showed his power to his believers and his followers, and protected them and did miraculous things. And a lot of times, in Western Christianity, we hear people and ourselves saying, man, it would be so cool if I could have seen that, or if God did, if he was, talking through fire again, and all these awesome stories that we look back to in the Old Testament. And he made this parallel that we spend all of our time looking back and saying how awesome that is, when everyone prior to that moment was always looking forward, and they were saying, this is cool, but how amazing is it going to be someday God is going to come and he's going to put his spirit inside of us. Literally, he's going to put his spirit inside of us. We're no longer going to go to see him or seek him and be separate, but he's literally going to come and dwell inside of our bodies. That blows away all the Red Sea crossings, all the miracles he's ever done. Like, it's uncomprehendable how incredible that is. And I was just kind of taken back and recognizing that I don't really appreciate the magnitude of what God did for me, and that his spirit is living in me. I'm not living that out daily, and I do find myself sometimes saying, man, why did God do all that other stuff, but he's not doing it here? And looking back and seeing all of civilization was always looking forward to this day that Messiah was going to come back for many reasons, but one, to be redeemed, and then two, God's spirit's inside of us. And so I was really, really challenged by that. And then it was interesting because Passover is coming upon us. It's going to be here in about 10 days, and we can dive into more on Passover in a bit. But this idea that previous societies, they would celebrate Passover in hopes of the Messiah coming back to rescue his people, and we are so privileged, and now that we get to celebrate Messiah, Yahushua's death, his burial, and his resurrection as a celebration of what he did for us. And so now we have the privilege he's invited us to this feast. We can celebrate it with him, and we're celebrating something that's already been done, which is amazing. And then we're going to have the opportunity to celebrate with him again in the future, Passover, and we see that later on in the scriptures. But it's just, to me, that whole thing is really amazing. And so we come upon this time of preparing for Passover, and it's a time of cleansing the leaven out of our houses. So we prepare our houses for the festival in unleavened bread and remove all the leaven, and that represents the sin in our lives, and we're called to internally take reflection of what's going on in our lives during this time, and to really cleanse the leaven, the sin out of our lives, and to look back. And it's interesting because as we celebrate New Year's, we're naturally wired to go back and take an account of the year and say, okay, like, new beginning this year. What am I going to do this year? I'm gonna clean up this act in my life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to prepare. And the New Year just happened a few days ago, and the biblical New Year,
Yeah.
the
Which is
biblical
based
New Year.
actually based on spring and the new life, and in Israel the Aviv, the barley. But obviously the calendars have been hijacked over the years by lots of different things, which was prophesied in Daniel, that the spirit of the anti-Messiah would change the times and the seasons and so on. That's a whole other kind of topic, but it is interesting. We have these kind of historical memories about things we ought to be doing, like everybody has New Year's resolutions or whatever, and of course the timing on the current calendar is January, but like you're saying, at the biblical New Year, yeah, it was a time of introspection. What have we done in the past that we need to change, so that going into the future we have a cleaner temple, a cleaner body, a cleaner house.
Yeah, Absolutely. And so we're sitting in this time, right now, and maybe we can share some stories of just stuff that we're kind of digging up in our own lives, and just looking back on.
It's an interesting question. The question about thinking back and looking at the stories that are recorded, and how present Yahweh seemed in those moments, and then a lot of times we look at our own lives, and he feels distant, and it's like, how is Father not showing up in our own lives right now, and to what extent is that our issue? I mean, there are people I know who move day to day in the miraculous, and part of that's with how close they walk to him. And so even looking back, I mean, yes, we have the set apart spirit dwelling inside us. How often are we allowing that to manifest in our practical, tangible lives? I mean, you think about Abraham, David, Noah, Enoch. Like, you think about all those faith heroes, and Hebrews talks about them as well, and they walked with God daily, like just constantly in this dialogue with him, and yeah, why don't we have that when you're right, we do have his spirit living in us? We should have that same.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question.
I feel recently, and you guys have heard this theme from me, but I don't feel like I'm living to my potential. Like, I feel like there's something off inside of me, and it's good because I'm really uncomfortable with where I'm at right now, and I appreciate that feeling because I recognize that God's given me an opportunity to be better, and that something's off, and so it's super uncomfortable, but I'm very appreciative of the idea that I can work with him to make some things better. And with what you just said, the other thing I'm really challenged by is Messiah tells us that we'll do things greater than what he did. That blows my mind. Like, I worry about, I pray for, Megan getting sick down here in Costa Rica and these things, and Yahushua is saying, you're going to do things greater than I did. He raised people from the dead. He healed people, took people that they were blind, not like they had foggy vision. They were born blind, and he made them see. He restored hope.
Cleansing the lepers, like even last week's Torah portion was was about leprosy and all the requirements in Leviticus about just the details of what would have to happen if someone had leprosy, or something that could develop into leprosy, and just the rigorous kind of checks and balances that were in place at that time to protect and prevent that from spreading. And for the most part, I mean, with a couple exceptions, maybe only one exception that we have recorded in Scripture with Naaman, you don't have anybody healed of leprosy that we know of historically until Yahushua came, and then he heals the 10 lepers at once, and one comes back. But just the powerful thing that even the picture of leprosy connected to the picture of leaven, and how it really destroys the body. It just eats away at it. Really, this is so interesting. Actually, it and I just learned this recently, but it eats away at the chemicals that carry the pain receptors. So
is it the central nervous system?
Yeah, it shuts down the nervous system. But when you think about leaven in our lives, you think about sin, like leaven representing sin, and the things that we do on a habitual basis that are contrary to Father's ways and contrary to his nature, and his nature's in us, right? So the more we walk in that mode of ignoring the pain, the pain things, because sin causes pain in our lives, like there's a consequence that flows out. It may be delayed, it may be whatever, but the more we walk in that, the more we ignore it, the more it grows, and we get desensitized to it. And that's why we have a whole generation of a group of people that have no sense of right or wrong, like wrong is right and right is wrong. And we have this sort of cultural leprosy or leaven that is spreading, and we can see it in our own lives too, where the things that we know we should or should not be doing, we do and we don't do. It gets harder to change course the more we walk down those paths.
It's a great connection. That's really powerful. Man, I think, and call it leprosy or whatever you want, but that tolerance of building up to a sinful life and not even knowing, being so far removed from our Creator, I do see that happening, but I also see a group of young people that are rising up and it's I'm seeing people coming together and rising up, and it's like God's healing all these people at once.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this other crowd of a younger generation that's coming together, and almost like a revival, but they're pushing really hard, and they're seeing it, and then they're seeing the miraculous happen as well, which is really cool. And I might share a story in a little bit about what happened yesterday, because some really cool things are happening down here as well in Costa Rica.
That's awesome. But yeah, like we don't want to. It's so funny. Our natural inclination is to avoid pain, like just the self-preservation. But the pain is a message. It's a signal. Like, hey, something's wrong. And if you lose the ability to feel pain, like lepers, I mean, they could burn their hand off or cut their finger off or whatever, and they wouldn't know without seeing it, because their body's lost that ability. And so, to what extent in our own lives are we shying away from the pain that is designed to tell us, wait a minute, something's wrong. You need to get this in check here.
Yeah, like, man, I can relate to so much of that right now. It's good. It's hard, and like I can relate to what you're saying, Ken, about just being like uncomfortable, like with where you're at. Like I don't know, like I felt that a lot lately. Like I don't know, I typically feel some of that, and I think it's good, but it is hard, and it definitely is uncomfortable. But like going back and asking the questions that sometimes seem basic, and that's kind of what I've been doing a lot lately, is just going back to like the root of like where my beliefs came from and all that, and even just to the point where I'm like trying to write out my story, to just be like, where are all these things, like where did those things happen, where did things shift, where, like, why do I believe what I believe? And I'm going to try to figure out how to tie this back to all the like the pain and stuff like that. And I think what's hard about it sometimes is like, as you're asking those questions, the pain point for me at least is like, you don't like the answer and stuff or whatever, or like I don't know, sometimes like I feel the pain, but I don't know, like I'm having a hard time like getting the answer I'm looking for, not because I'm like looking for like a certain thing, but I'm having a hard time like understanding like the answer. And like, I always joke with you guys, but like both of you guys, like, you always say things like, it's so clear, and like I just, every time I hear that phrase, like I laugh, because internally, because I'm like, if it was so clear, I wouldn't be having a problem with that, or if it was so clear, like, lots more people would be on the same page. So to me, it's just not clear. And like, and so, it's hard when you're like going through those like pain points, being like, and you hear that, you're like, gosh, like my best friends are saying this is so obvious, but I do not see that and stuff. And some of that maybe is because like, you're sitting there bleeding out, like, and you can't feel anything, and so
Yeah, and you gotta make sure you make sure you
Thanks, bye.
tell us, like, if we do make, and sometimes it's just sometimes it's a very carelessly tossed out comment too. And so if it's not clear, or to you or whatever, like, just say, whoa, it's not clear to me, and because that's an awesome thing to unpack further.
Yeah, and like I think too with that, like sometimes I don't, there's like the fear element, like, okay, I'm gonna learn something I don't want to learn, or there's like, and like I don't really get embarrassed with you guys. I mean, well, maybe that's inaccurate. Maybe I do. Like, but like there's like this embarrassment, like when something like that happens, you're like, okay, like I should know this. So maybe you don't speak up, or like you don't want to, like, I'm lucky because I have you guys. I feel like I could, ask a bunch of questions, and you guys would actually take the time to like sit there and like hammer it out and figure it out, even if they seem like lame questions or whatever. But like I'm like, okay, that one, like bringing this one thing up could be, I mean, that's like a whole conversation, that could be days of conversation, because I know how our conversations are. Like, they're really good, but it's just like thing after thing, and it's just like, where's the line between like me figuring it out, and that I don't know, like I think it's really important to figure it out for yourself, but
Yeah. Well,
I
and a
think
lot of
God
times,
puts
like,
people in your life too, you know.
totally. And we have friends up here, and they've said this repeatedly, like they wouldn't be where they are today if it wasn't for, either this particular teacher or this particular relationship or this particular experience that got them over a hurdle. I
Hmm.
mean, and that's an interesting balance, right? Because I think Yahweh gives gifts of teaching and different gifts to different people for different purposes. And yes, the responsibility is ours. We have to be sponges. We have to be chasing truth. But ultimately, I mean, yeah, there's things that I would have never learned without Father bringing something into my path to teach it to me.
Hmm.
And so that's just as important as us chasing truth is, um, you know, asking the resources that Father has surrounded us with for those
Mhm.
specific things.
And
And that,
you talk about like leaven and things like that. Like I don't know, like I think there's more basic things too, you know,
Mhm.
like it's like we're always saying like, oh, we want to know God or we want XYZ to happen or, you know, we want to hear God in this area, but like the way we spend our time, like that's our leaven or like the
Mhm.
way we, you know, and I don't know, it's so tough because like like one of
It
my
is.
questions like on my list like
Mhm.
so I was telling these guys before we started like I've just been like going through and like asking like these really basic questions like why do I believe the Bible is true? Why do I believe the God in the Bible is like the one true God? Why, you know, like just things like that. And it's interesting like being 32 years old and asking those questions and being like I don't really know, but I know I've had a lot of experiences that like makes that undeniable. And then I was like socialized a certain way. Like I grew up, like I had no reason not to believe this, you know? And so like really questioning it for myself, like even at 32, and it's like I'm not really scared like I'm gonna like lose faith or anything or not believe in it. Like it's just like I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, I really gotta get this.
mhm.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, I I think that there's probably pain in that,
oh yeah.
but
Hmm.
I encourage you to keep going down that path because it's about so much more than you. When you can answer those questions and you know them, you can be a witness and you can literally transform other people's lives. And so I'm sure
Hmm.
that if you look back, you've seen how literally the testimony of some people has transformed either your life or someone in your families or someone you know. And that's the power and that's the reason that it's so much more than just can Shaw get these questions answered.
Hmm.
Can you have an intimate relationship with God so that you can share your story and that you're rooted next to the river, right? You're like a tree planted by the river. You're this
Yeah.
rich tree that's sharing this abundant fruit to help other people.
Hmm.
And God's power is super real, but it's this journey that you're on is going to be, that we're all on. It's about that's one of my big kind of convictions recently. It's so much more than me. Like I got to get way over myself. And speaking of, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but the leaven and Milo, one of the big things that Father's shown me right now is I'm not holding on to eternal perspective that much recently. I'm really getting caught up in the short term, and I'm not caring about people spending eternity separated from Him. It's not really coming to my focus, and I'm starting to worry about these things that never settle, and how are we growing, and how do we maintain this, and how do we keep up with the demands of making sure our staff always has a paycheck and all these things. And then what's happening is I'm starting to drift further and further away from taking every day and saying, okay, what are the things I'm doing now that are going to actually have an internal impact? Like how am I pouring into Megan? How am I pouring into this community around me? And I still do those things, but my focus was lost, and God's really showing me that right now. Like you gotta change your perspective, and so that's the thing I'm working on. But anyways, I think it would be great for you to. I think it's great that you're going down that, even though it's painful, because I think it'll be about so much more than you, and you have a powerful testimony, and you are a powerful witness. So I think having those questions answered will be really valuable. And God's called us to be diligent in seeking Him. He's very clear about that, and so that's partly on your side, and then the other part is we have to trust in His timing. So it's also not your job to get it all instantly, and you shouldn't be
Hmm.
frustrated with yourself with things as like He's going to use, as Andrew said, not just people, but He'll bring certain experiences into your life if you're seeking Him. I think that's the key, right? If you're seeking Him in His timing, He'll make this clear. He'll reveal it to you, and you just have to be willing to go on the journey as he reveals those things on his timeline. And the thing that I'm going to close with, Andrew said this to us yesterday when we were working. I was talking about something maybe not moving fast enough or whatever, and Andrew said, how do you think Moses felt watching sheep for 40 years after being, a prince in Egypt?
Yeah,
Like,
I heard that one loud and clear myself, and I was just chuckling about that because, like, yeah, like, it is his timing. I think that's a great thing to bring up, and I think I've always struggled with wanting the knowledge, but then realizing the knowledge doesn't get you really anywhere if you don't have the relationship, and I think if I'm honestly seeking, spending the time reading, praying, and just listening to what Father has, I think He is going to provide those things, and I think that's where some of my relief valve and some of the healing is just realizing he's bigger than your frustrations, and even though person X, Y, and Z may have this one understanding of whatever, and you're not there, I just have confidence that if I'm supposed to be there, He will get me there.
absolutely.
And so that's one thing I'm totally just latching onto right now, because otherwise I would be maybe angry all the time. I don't know.
Well, if I could put a finger on the single thing that makes all the difference in terms of how we view everything, how we approach everything, and I see it in my own life, is how do we transform our appetite? That's really what the issue is, our appetite. What thing do we crave? And we are so saturated in our culture, society, everything, even in sheltered Christian homes or whatever, even growing up in a fairly good environment, we're still inundated with the world. And so we have this built-in appetite for the world, and we start, the more we chase the worldly things that we crave, the further we're going to drift from Father. But the more we crave Him and His Spirit, the more that transforms us to crave more of Him. And it's this, and I see a gap in my own life, I can relate to the things you both are saying in terms of just this discomfort of where you're at. And to some extent, I've always felt this in my life. I've gone through seasons, where I felt closer to Father or further away from Father. But any of those time periods where I felt distant from Him, I can see in myself just this acting on worldly cravings versus craving Him and His ways and His truth and His Spirit and His relationship and all that. And really, the battle is, how do we replace, or how do we, again, back to leaven, right? How do we expunge the craving for leaven and crave Him? And how do we craft every action, every decision, every moment of our time around Him and desiring Him and His ways?
Something that stands out to me is everyone's always looking for physical expression of God, especially when they're challenging their faith. How do I know God's real? I get I can pray to Him and all this stuff, even though we don't even take that seriously. We're talking literally directly to the Creator of the universe. He's a being. We're talking directly to Him. That's just crazy. But getting off my tangent, He's physical. He is, and we're always looking for physical things, and God is very physical. And I think the problem is we're always wanting Him to move first without having any faith. And so some of the things that solidify my faith that everyone's always looking for, or help me have a different appetite, as you're saying, Andrew, is when I have these physical encounters, physical experiences with God, where it's so intimate, I can taste it, right? I can touch it. And it changes my life, and it then becomes part of my story, and those are anchors I can hang on to. But what I've found in those moments of having physically experienced God is that it took me not necessarily understanding His Word, but trusting it and saying, I'll walk this out. I'll do my part, and I will just walk this out, whether I understand it or not. And then every time, literally 100% of the time, every time I've been obedient to doing something He said in His Word, He has always fulfilled what He said He's going to do. And usually it's after I walk out the physical that then I get the understanding. And it's just weird, and maybe it's just my learning style, but for me that's what it's always been. So even circling this up to Passover, I was I was convicted enough that I thought I should celebrate Passover because I couldn't reconcile why the Bible said to do it. I couldn't reconcile why Messiah did it himself, why the early believers after Messiah still celebrated Passover, why the Bible says that we're going to celebrate it with Messiah in the future when we're in heaven together with him. And I couldn't reconcile those things. I was like, okay, you know, as Christians, what would Jesus do? We're supposed to do the things he did. Well, he celebrated Passover, so I feel like I should. But the Bible also tells me directly, do this every generation forever, multiple times. And so that was enough. Those things right there were enough for me to say, okay, I don't fully understand Passover. I don't get it, but I do believe I'm supposed to celebrate this. And so I just kind of took a step out, and so we celebrated Passover. And as we celebrated Passover and then following Passover, I felt like God like gave me this like digital download in my head, like Matrix style, and like answered all my outstanding questions. But they weren't answered before I celebrated Passover, which is a lot like our salvation, you know? Like I didn't understand all the things God was going to do before I asked him to come into my life. But after I did, he was so faithful in showing up and doing all the things that he said he did. And so for me, I found that the physical expression of living out the things he's asked me, even if I don't understand them, has always followed with kind of a better understanding of it. And so my encouragement is just to try to keep, man, if I don't understand it, just if I think the Bible's saying it, like I try to walk it out and see, is God real? Like, is he going to show up in this, right? And that was what blew me away at Passover. I was like, this is a festival. And then I did it, and it was so much more. It wasn't a festival by any means, and I was so convicted about how short-sighted I was in the whole thing. But,
Well, and I think we can take this. We can always take this back to the most simple, basic, concrete illustrations that we can relate to, right? Take our children, for example, and favorite example, like, okay, Joy, it's time for a nap. And then, like, all of a sudden, it's like I just cut her arm off. I'm not tired. I don't want to nap. And just carry on and on and on, right? And you can tell this child just needs to go to sleep. Like, they're just zonked. And they will have a totally different perspective on life once they sleep, wake up, and everything's reset. But she's convinced she's not tired. She is angry. She's all these things. And we put ourselves in the child, and look at that from the outside for a second. We may have no idea or understand why our Heavenly Father has asked us to do something, and it may be painful, and we may instantly think, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want. That's not what I need. And we may be convinced 100%, I don't need a freaking nap. Come on, that's not the problem. But if we will just do it, we'll wake up and we'll be a totally different person. We'll see it, we'll get it. And it doesn't happen all the time that way. Like that's been my experience too, Ken, for the most part. Just that, and that's, what's so funny is we in religion we try to separate faith and obedience. We try to think of them. We've been lied to and convinced that obedience and faith are that grace and obeying are opposites, or are somehow against each other, or are somehow in conflict. But really, scripturally, they are synonymous. Faith is obedience, because we have to trust that what Father said is right and good, and that His ways are better than our ways, and His thoughts way higher than our thoughts. We have to trust that in order to do them. And so by walking that out, by celebrating Passover, by guarding the Ten Commandments, all of them, not just a couple of them, or the ones at the end about murder and stuff. By doing all those things, it's an act of faith, and those are synonymous, obedience and faith. And so when we say, I trust you, Yahweh, the creator of the universe, you've designed all the physical laws, all the spiritual laws, and I may not get them, I may not even understand, but I'm going to take this baby step and just do what you say because you said it. And then often, like, I find that Father just is so faithful to flood our hearts, our spirits, our minds with a deeper perspective, and He gives us the why. I mean, there is a why. As parents, as fathers, we have a why to it. We're just not going to sit there and argue with our 4-year-old back and forth for an hour about the why. But when they do it, then they start to gain that understanding themselves.
That's good.
Yeah, and I find that with a lot, I mean, whether it's agriculture, I mean, the family rate, and that's why it's such a tragedy how just the gigantic battleground that the family is. And I was just watching some movie trailers last night, and just the dysfunction that is now normal and portrayed in media and entertainment, and you're seeing so much more often now, like the heroes of a particular story are these people who are in these really horrible family situations, and yet they're somehow able to do the best that they can with whatever, and it's this very noble thing now, but that's like such a sad commentary on the state of things. And the reason that attack is so heavy on the family structure, on a mother, a father, children, all the relationships intertwined with all that, is because in the family structure is so much revelation and instruction about our relationship with our Creator, with our Heavenly Father. And not only that, with our siblings, our spiritual siblings, our brothers and sisters in Messiah. And if we lose that picture, we have no concrete mechanism by which to understand Yahweh's heavenly family.
Yeah, I think yeah, family is like a huge deal, and like in light of like a lot of the things in my life and like a lot of these questions that I'm asking and all that, like I found the reason to be like mostly my boys, like because I'm looking at where I'm at, like 32 years old, and not wanting my boys to be in that same place, like, and not that it's bad, like I feel like really blessed, and I feel like the Lord's like he's brought me through and taught me so many things, and like I've been able to like trust him, and I have like just a ton of faith that like he is good and he like knows what we need, and like his provision's like incredible, and like there's just nothing that would like sway like my like faith in what he's done for me and like my kids and my wife, and like and so like I look at my boys, and like I look at like how I was taught things, and like I feel like I had a pretty awesome life. I was lucky, like I had a great family life, like I had parents who followed the Lord, and like just all sorts of like amazing I don't know, we went to church, we did all the things, right? But like it still felt like not force fed, that's not the right word, but like I don't know, like I want to teach my kids to like question and walk through it even at a young age, like rather than here it is, and like shield them from like the other like thinking about it logically. Be like, here, I want to be like, here it is, and here's why. Like, and this is what the Lord's done for me, and like, here it is, and I have no idea why. And like when I don't know, like I don't think that's like, I feel like a lot of parents take the license to be like, that's just how it is. Like, no, it's not how it is. It's like, this is what the Bible says. I have no idea why it says that, but like, let's work on that together. And I don't care that you're 6.
I think it's a great. I personally think that's a huge witness. And what I love is that if God is real and it's not religion, then like there's nothing to hide, right? There's no reason to try to answer questions we don't understand. There's no reason to be scared that someone's going to go seek God and they're not going to find him. And I know there's this big hesitancy towards that all the time. Like we're trying to control, like, man, this person can only handle this much and this much, and I do believe that there's wisdom in teaching. If you're discipling or teaching somebody, I do believe there's wisdom, and I think we can look to what Messiah did. But I also am never afraid that God's going to show up if someone's earnestly seeking him, and I think that's a difference. Like,
Right.
Does someone really want to find God, or they have their own preconceived notions? I know that when I go into a question with an answer already in mind, it does not matter what I hear or what happens, I will not hear it.
Yep.
But I totally believe that like when people are going to seek God, that he will always show up, and that because he's not a religion, it's not fake, it's not false. And so I think it's great to do that. My mom is one of those people. She for so many years she'll tell me, I don't understand most of these things, and not most, there's many things I don't understand in the Bible. And she's like, but I'm okay with that because I don't, and I'm seeking to understand them, but I cannot deny these things that God's done in my life. It's impossible for me to do that. It would be the very existence of me denying that I have a hand. Like that's how It's how real it is. And I think that's never discouraged me or freaked me out or been like, oh, well, God obviously isn't real if you don't have all these questions, right? It's like, no, like I could see the relationship in her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it's so important, the foundation, right? And especially for teaching our children or whatever. And we were watching Expelled last night by Ben Stein, and such a great kind of expose on the political atmosphere around the evolution topic and intelligent design topic and stuff. Fantastic. But what stood out to me in that was that, you know, a lot of the people who were self-affirmed now atheists, you know, point back to a point in their life where they had a form of faith and where they walked away from it because of what they think of as scientific questions they couldn't answer in the Bible or whatever it was. And the difference there, like I realized I had sort of an epiphany after watching that. You know, I realized, like, I can't prove to you or to anyone else God exists, but I have proven him 100% to exist to myself. And I've proven that, and that can 100% be done. Like, we can't convince anyone else, but we can for ourselves 100% prove that he does exist. And I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And it's interesting how, you know, you can see two totally different kind of approaches there, which one, again, foundation, if you build a house on the sand, it's not going to stand. And so if your faith in God is based on accepting everything you've been taught just for the reasons that you've been told and never having walked that out yourself, when something tests that and you can't defend it, then yeah, it's going to topple. Because it's not sure in yourself. You haven't proven it to yourself. You've just accepted what's been taught to you. And that's why it's critical to teach our children, you know, this can be proven because I've done it for myself. You can do it too, but you have to do it. I can teach you what I think is right, but I can't prove this for you. You have to prove it for yourself.
Yeah.
Super interesting.
I think, man, it's so great.
And it's not a simple thing either. It's not like just because, right? It's a relationship. It's not a formula. It's not if I get enough data, then I have this perfect answer. It's, you know, I mean, I can't deny that, Shaw, you exist or can exist. I mean, you're people. I could ignore you and pretend you don't exist, but if I never talk to you, if I never find out who you are, what you think, what you want, what you like, then I can pretend like you don't exist. But if I pursue a relationship with you and I get to know you and we have this connection, then, you know, yeah, it's impossible to deny you exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, just kind of, I don't have anything to add on what you just said. I think it was all great. I think for me, just looking back, one of the things I am excited about and how faithful God is right now, like, he's revealing some really cool things to me. And so he's asked that I remove the leaven from my life before Passover, right? And I don't fully get it, but I'll tell you, I started seeking him these past few weeks and asking that, and it's so cool because he's been faithful in showing me what this root of this, like, discontentment was in my life, this pain that I was feeling, this discomfort where I felt really uncomfortable in my own skin, and I couldn't really put a finger on it. I couldn't even told you that 2 months ago that I was really uncomfortable, and I felt discontent. But it was going through this process of saying, okay, man, it is that time of year. I need to really take a look inside. I need to pray that the Spirit will reveal to me these things that I'm doing that are either dishonoring to God or blind spots I have, or just things that I do know about that I've chosen not to deal with. And what's really cool, I'm kind of putting this all together now, is I really have been feeling this for months, and it's been uncomfortable. And literally in, like, the time frame of a week, he's revealed so much to me just by following what he told me to do as my father. Right? He said, you do this, and now all this stuff, like, it's just so evident. You know, some of it's to deal with I've lost focus on what's important, but there's also other really personal things. Like, he convicted me of things that I changed in my life about who I am that I shouldn't have changed, and I changed them because of how people around me responded. And he showed me that I was using the blame game, and I was looking at, like, oh man, I've become worse at this area or in this gifting or whatever that God's given me, but it's her fault or it's his fault because I'm around them all the time and they do this and they have a bad reaction to this, so they change how I respond. And God gave me a really big, like, I don't know, kick in the butt. Like, Ken, this is not their fault. Like, it does not matter your circumstances. It does not matter what other people do to you or how they react to what you do. You are accountable for your actions, and that was your choice. And this is your sin, basically. Those are hard things to hear. Like, sin is always such a scary word. I laugh because it is scary because it's the thing that separates us from God for eternity. But it's also when we can put light on it, we can deal with it like immediately. But I just really pointed out like you want to blame other people for these things that you're changing in your life, and the man that you're allowing yourself to fall back on, and you made a mistake by doing that. It was this process of God being faithful and showing that to me, because I went and spent time with him during this time that he said, this is intentionally, I should spend time on these things with me, and so just so faithful this time, and I've really valued it and just valued that time, and I don't know.
That's one of the awesome things I found about the biblical festivals, all of them throughout the entire year, is that I know in my life without them, I wouldn't have. I mean, they're like naps. I mean, they're reset buttons, and I find there's things I can forget from year to year that this happens. But then when we get into a festival period, Passover or Sukkot or whatever, when we hit those time frames, like, oh yeah, like there's all this stuff I've been ignoring, and this is a reset, and it forces me to get back in that just self-examination mode, and it's like, oh wow, like I've been ignoring this stuff for months. Like, yeah, let's deal with this. Let's get out and let's drag it out, and let's improve in these areas. And that wouldn't happen. I mean, yeah, we could do that sort of in a like a New Year's resolution type of context, but I find with the relational aspect of all the feasts, it's like Father saying, hey, I want to know you, I want to be with you, I want to spend time with you, and as part of that, it forces us to say, oh wow, we're coming before the creator of the universe, like what do we need to get right in our lives? And happening on a yearly basis, on an annual cycle, like every year it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's awesome. And I think with our relationships with our families, with our children, with the next generation, we're either degenerating or we're regenerating, and Father Spirit's the only thing that can regenerate. And like you look at the powerful example of the lepers. I mean, we all have leprosy, and there's only one cure for that, Messiah, and Messiah is the only one who can heal that condition and restore us to a completely clean state. And if we're not careful, that can creep back in. But with an ongoing relationship, with an ongoing healing of just pushing further and further into who he is and who he's made us to be, we can become immune to that. And that's the journey, That's the journey.
Absolutely. I feel like we're closing down. I have this email that's super powerful that has nothing to do with the festivals, but I've been really on the fence of sharing it. But I want to share it. If we're closing down, I just want to share it because I don't know when else I'll get the chance, and I wasn't thinking about it. But as you guys were talking, it was just I felt like I was supposed to share it, and I don't know why. So I'm gonna do that unless you guys have anything else you want to close down with.
No, let's wrap it up.
Let's hear it.
Shaw, you have anything else real quick before?
No, let's hear it.
And I guess the way I would tie this in is, well, the background is this email was sent. I'm going to take out all of the personal information, but it was sent to a contact form with one of the organizations that we work with that does child trafficking, that me and Megan that work with directly. And so this person sent this email to them. And I guess to me it gives me hope and conviction. So two things. One, we're talking about, Andrew, you're talking about how normal it's become for just totally distorted family structure and reality. Mm-hmm. And it's a tragedy how bad it's gotten. But then we talked about revival, and we talked about young people rising up, and then old people need to set the example. But God is still moving. That's what's so powerful, is he's still giving us a spirit. So we don't even have to teach people. I mean, we're called to, but God, he's not going to stop moving. He's already in these people's lives. He's already in these communities. He's going to keep moving, and he's so alive and real. He's going to give people truths that they may not even understand way beyond their years, because the spirit's so active. And this is kind of where I see somebody that was maybe in a bad situation, and God's spirit literally revealed them something that they would have never gotten on their own, especially at their age. And so to me, it shows how bad things are getting, but how faithful God is and how powerful he is, that regardless of how bad it ever gets, he's still doing the miraculous, he's still doing the mighty. And the last piece of this, the convicting piece for me, is I know lots of people that struggle in this area, and I don't know, why does this 17-year-old boy get the ramifications of these actions, but some of the people I deeply, deeply care about don't. And everyone, and we all have our own things, so it's easy for me to throw a stone at certain things. And I would go as far as to say, like, I've even struggled with this in the past. But at some point, we have to put aside the things from our, we have to put aside these things, and we have to grow and become the adults that God's called us to be. But anyways, that was a lot of things to really preface this email. Hopefully they tie into the podcast a little bit, but to me it was a testimony, a witness of how powerful God is and what he's doing in people's lives, regardless of the darkness that they're in. And so this person, sent this email in randomly on a contact form, and he says, "Hi, I want to raise my concern over increasing pornography on the internet every day. I myself have experienced that pornography really accelerates abnormal behavior. I'm a teenager and I was exposed to pornography via the internet at age 14. It's not just me. Every friend of mine watches porn. Even on informative or clean sites, such links keep blinking upon the screen, and we are unable to pull our attention out of them at times. Seems like a sweet poison. The mail contains This email contains the voices of my friends too, who find this pornography illegal. I don't want this to keep stirring in my mind. I sometimes regret doing this, but you know how the male brain is wired, and we're more prone to sexual desires. If there is somehow I can contribute to your voice, please do notify me. I want all these porn sites to be banned from my country if possible, or any way in which the porn and people connection can be minimized. I find it pathetic to live in a world where even a woman with a pure heart is forced into the flesh trade, and people lying on the couch at their homes watch them and take the pain in via videos. They laugh at them. I did my research and found that pornography intensifies the crime against women by large margins. I'm trying to stop this claw of destruction over my home and this world. Please help. Whoever you are, help this society. Please do whatever you can. Either way, in a fast, techy, and healthy society, it is not good to have pornography sites running. Please do something whenever you are free, wherever you get time to think it over. Thanks." And I don't know. I know that it's a slippery slope, and it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And so for me, the sex trade industry, it starts out with something as simple as like a Playboy. But then it gets to this place where you have young people that can watch other people get raped and they can laugh about it. And we're so far removed, so far removed. And here's a guy that's slipping in, he had slipped into, it sounds like something fairly dark. And to me, the witness to God is like, how does this young guy get this message and have this conviction and be able to pull back and see, have the scales come off his eyes and be able to objectively look at it and see, like, whoa, how gnarly is that? And this is what it's contributing to on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
And
that's a primary example of Father miraculously reconnecting the pain sensors. Because at some point you just get so desensitized, and then you keep craving. But everybody knows that's the imprint of the Creator on everyone's heart. Everyone knows. There is no excuse. It's just a matter of how determined are we to ignore Yahweh's spirit in our heart.
And I just pigeonholed on one thing, but that to me that applies to every single thing that I struggle with in my life. Like there one, I need to understand this, and I need to allow my pain receptors to be turned back on, right? And then two, like there's hope for me, and there's hope for the world and the broken family structure, because he is still alive and he is still working in people regardless of what I'm doing. And I was just super challenged by this young guy that you know, just
Yeah, that's
God is
awesome.
working on his own. Like it's just awesome. God's alive.
Mm-hmm.
That is awesome.
I don't know. I know that was a pretty
Cool.
big departure from where we were talking, but
No,
I
there's
felt
a
like I was
million.
supposed to share it.
There's a million other topics that could open up too, but it's good stuff.
Cool. Well,
It's awesome, yeah.
we're back on the tracks. Hopefully, we'll do it more frequently than once every 2
Yeah,
months.
we fell pretty far off the train on on this one. This is weeks, but it does
Quite
feel
a bit.
good to
Yeah, it does feel good to
get back
talk.
on it. Yep.
Good stuff.
All right.